This is the fence between Israel and Jordan, and it may be electrified. And of course there are many Palestinians in Jordan. However, the border between Jordan and Israel is peaceful at this time. Now all of this area over here that we're looking at this is Jordan. And of course on this side of the fence here, where we are right now, of course, is Israel. So this is the Israeli-Jordan border. The pictures were taken now. Kim, Golan Height Mountain, looking down into the valley, and this is, of course, the kibbutz up here, and it gets some very nice little cabins that people can come and stay in. Now, as we look down, we can see the edge of this mountain that we filmed from the valley, and this is of course where the Syrians had their guns, and of course many other places in the Golan Heights, and they would just shoot down here into the valley, which is 1,700 foot below roughly. We're looking almost straight down, 1,700 feet. I know sometimes it's hard to see that we're looking down or up on a video camera, but we're looking downward from the Golan Heights, the area where Syria would have her guns, some of the area, trying to kill the Israeli people. Off in the distance here we see the southern end of the Sea of Galilee. Caesarea Philippi, some of the headwaters of the
region of Caesarea Philippi, where we are now here. He asked his disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets. But what about you?" he asked. "Who do you say I am?" And Simon Peter answered, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." And Jesus replied, this is a market, Monday market. This is the Monday market here in Kiryat Shmona, and this is very picturesque.
Kiryat Shmona.
That is where we're located at this time.
No.
Pedestrian walkway.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he is a smart dog.
The town that we're in. City of Safad. Looking up a little alleyway with shops and so on. We are now in the synagogue in
An old synagogue.
Safad.
No, you don't need. Those who have a hat don't need only. No, keep your hat on. Here in the synagogue, it is different than in churches. Right? So please sit down a moment. Let me tell you, this is to discover new land. Isabel and Fernand, King and Queen of Spain, have decreed the Jews either to convert to Catholicism or to live immediately. That from the outside they behaved as Christians, as Catholics, but at home they continued to maintain the Maghreb in west of Spain, and the others moved enough to clear. What they did was to bury them under concrete or under whatever they could in order. Here, See, this is Maimonides. This is one of the books of Maimonides. Maimonides lived in the 12th century. And so something like it, to try and to minimize 20 years old. 450 years old. And still you can see it is so clear, although you can tell that it is like a scroll. Then they sew them together. After one is ready to go on to the other. And then the Torah, you know, one of the comment, how do the year is divided to the 52 weeks. Every week you roll to the next week reading.
Parsha?
Yeah, the Parsha. And then, of course, from the beginning until the end of the year, you will read the Torah again and again and again. You will not only live by the Torah, you will learn the Torah, you will know it by your heart, by your mind. See, the Torah is not made from an iron, from a silver housing, as some are in, elaborate wooden boxes, but decorated with. And the last thing I wanted to say, just because it sprang to my mind, what you see will be like the archive, right? The community in hundreds of years, like how many new births were here, and what kind of plague they suffered from, and who got married to be dumped into the garbage. They must be either kept in the archives, or if a student will decide that that's what he wants to do as his graduation, past times of the community and everything that happened here. To begin with, because to give you an example, doctors, we take for granted that the world cannot really go ahead without the medical system. And you see how
holy books and Torahs, which can never be thrown into the garbage, they are stored here.
Okay, as I told you, please don't forget the charity box here. And if you
this is where the women will sit. It's in a separate room. Here we have the room where the women sit. And this is the entranceway to the synagogue that we were just in. Back over here you can see the blue, it's all colored blue, representing sky or heaven.
The original Bible, what's called the Old Testament. And it's a command, for example, in the Torah, that's what the name of it is, the Torah, to write certain portions of the Torah and put them on a door. They're called mezuzot. And they go on the door. And this is what it looks like when it's not on the door. All right? It contains the declaration of God's oneness. Hear, O Israel, Lord our God, the Lord is one, and tells us what we're supposed to do, that we should always keep the teachings of God in our mouth, and when we're laying down, getting up, going to work, coming home, it should be the main force of our lives. And in order for it to be suitable, kosher in other words, it has to be done on skin from a kosher animal, which is like anyone that has a cloven hoof and ruminates. And it's got to be written with ink that's got no non-kosher products in it. It's got to be written with a quill from a bird that's in the same category. This is from a turkey. It's kind of hard to soar with eagles when you work with turkeys, but anyway.
Very good, very good.
And then when I've done everything that I'm supposed to do, God puts the power in to protect us wherever we go. Now that's a Jewish thing, because why? Because it's a very special thing. I'll try to explain it to you folks. And if you have any questions, don't be bashful to ask me. Why do only Jewish people need this and not non-Jewish people don't need it? And the answer is because, what does the chosen people mean? The Jewish people are supposed to be the chosen people. Does that mean we're better or something? Not at all. It means that it's describing our job, that we're picked to be his ambassadors. We're the ones that have to go out and show the world what justice is according to the Torah. Before the Torah came to the world, people were sacrificing their old fathers and mothers to the lions. You know, you know the history and so forth. Our job is to show the world what justice is through our own actions, by the way we live them ourselves. We're supposed to be examples. And so since we have to go sometimes into an environment that is not conducive to godliness, God gave us His commandment to protect us wherever we go, that we should be protected. If we're going to do what He's supposed to, what He wants us to do, you're not going without protection. That's the.
It is written on parchment. It is part of the special writing.
We'll continue to walk through the streets here at Seifert. As we're walking along here, these the Jordan River.
Goodbye to the Jordan River now. And to tell
Bet Shean.
but they were very much involved in 48 with fighting against Israel. I mean, and as a result of this, they all fled, and they became some refugees over the other side. In the meantime, immigrants came to Israel, and they are the ones who formed the new city here. Look here, please, on the place that we found, and you see this is where the gladiators were fighting animals, which is so different from the theater that we saw some further in when we'll see the site itself. The spectators' benches, and the gladiators will come from, or the animals will come from the cages that were at the bottom, at the arena floor. See over the openings? Those were openings that will lead to the cages in which the animals, the hungered animals, were kept, and the people will rave, and they will be very excited.
Here we see people working in the excavations and fixing things. This was a temple to Dionysius.
You know that the building wanted to adorn, to see some materials that belong to an earlier time, lying on top.
Some of the excavations on top of the tell here. This would have been dating way back, long before Christ. This, of course, would have been to the times of Saul and David. Scanning now the top of the hill, the tell, and the excavations from the time of Saul and David, and when Saul was killed. Came down from. The path was difficult at times. Now here's the modern city of Beit Shem. We're going up the streets. Although this has been in the long distance past, was an Arab town, Arab city, but now it's, as we understand it, mostly Jews that have returned, I guess, from other countries to Israel.
And they came from North African countries, and they did not know the language, and they wonder why were they put here in such a such a faraway places, and
Pompeii of Israel in the old days.
And this would just connect
there,
with the
Mountain
reading
Gilboa
that we did at Beit Jubrin. We have a long drive to Beit Jubrin, to the caves of the Tel Caves from here.
We're now going to see a excavated old synagogue from the Byzantine era. Some farmers were just digging in the fields, and all of a sudden they came across the mosaic floor, and the ruins of the synagogue were discovered.
What you see, this is another synagogue which was hit in
1800 years ago.
We read that the mosaic was laid in the year of the reign of Emperor Justinus, for the price of 100 measures of grain.
A strategic.
There's Megiddo. Much history
Did you
here.
find you want Bet Shemesh or
The Tel Shemesh we're on right now, the hill.
the Ark of the Lord, and put it on a cart, and in the chest beside it put the gold objects you are sending back to him as a guilt offering. Send it on its way, but keep watching it. If it goes up to its own territory toward Bet Shemesh, then the Lord has brought this great disaster on us. But if it does not, then we will know that it was not his hand that struck us and that it happened to us by chance. So here is this Beit Shemesh. And this Beit Shemesh,
And we're on Tel Shemesh.
now the people of Beit
Right
Shemesh
now.
were harvesting the wheat in the valley. And when they looked up and saw the ark, they rejoiced at the sight. The cart came to the field of Joshua and Beit Shemesh, and
Here we have the
there it
fields.
stopped beside a large rock. The people carved with up the wood of the cart and sacrificed the cows as a burnt offering and as a guilt offerings to the Lord. One each for Ashdod, Gaza, Ashkelon, Gath, and Ekron. And the number of the gold rates was according to the number of the Philistine towns belonging to the 5 rulers. The
Plunge me to victory beneath the cleansing flood.
Jacob, the area of David and Goliath is right here. I believe the area that we photographed as we're walking through the area of David and Goliath, multitudes of purple flowers here in this field. Some of the stones here in this area.
So here, I will say this again, this is the
Between Shoko and Azekah and Ephes Dammim. And Saul and the men of Israel were gathered together and pitched by the valley of Elah, and set the battle in array against the Philistines. And the Philistines stood on a mountain on the one side, and Israel stood on a mountain on the other side. And there was a valley between them.
So the valley and the 2 mountains here, one and another. Yeah.
It's believed that this was the side
And one bearing a shield went before him.
that Israel was on,
Stood and cried unto the armies of Israel, and said unto them, Why are
and
you
this
come
was the
out
side
to set your battle in array?
the Philistines
And
were
then I
on.
am Philistine, and ye servants of Saul. Choose you a man for you.
And we're down in the area,
Kill me, then we will be your
actual
servants.
area,
But if I
we
go
believe
out
that
against him and kill him,
David and Goliath
then we will be our servants and serve
took
us.
place.
And the Philistine said, I despise son. And the man went among men for
We are again in the valley of David and Goliath. As we're walking along the path here where the battle should have taken place, we found a donkey.
They tie him that way?
I don't think that we should walk further. Here's where you can pick maybe a different stone or a kind of a round
We see lots of stones around here. Somewhere in this vicinity is where David would have picked up the stones, and again here we have the side that we believe Israel was on.
And he took his staff in his hand and chose him 5 5 smooth stones out of the brook, and put them in the shepherd.
And on the other side,
His hand, and he drew near to the Philistine. And
the side
Philistine
of the
came on
Philistines.
near unto David, and the man that bare the shield went on before him. When the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him. He was and of a fair countenance.
And then between here,
Philistine said unto David,
the valley,
dog, that thou comest to me with the stave.
which is also a
First David by his
small
side.
stream
And the Philistine said to David,
also here in this valley.
I will give thy flesh to the
But
fowls
because of the growth and path, it's hard to get to it.
in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied. This day will the Lord deliver you. Philistine arose, he came, and now he slew David. And David hastened and ran toward the army.
Like catching from the satellites, the various broadcasts.
Big satellites here. That's where they catch the broadcast of Satan, BBC.
This is a satellite broadcast that connects Israel with the rest of the world, which is probably the road on which David traveled from his father's place, Bethlehem, down to the gathering place of Goliath and the children of Israel, the 2 camps. But in the meantime, we're passing now Etzion, maybe you heard.
Yes.
And they figure supplies and without ammunition. And these students carry on, and they've lost their way. So they
Goliath.